Alrighty. Well, hey folks, what's going on? This is episode one of the Stick and Grow Show, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a couple things that small teams can do to win. Specifically, today, we're going to be looking at a couple of ways that founders, in particular, can take a busy schedule and then use a couple of smart little tactics to create good ways to put information into their brain to then use in their content. I think one of the biggest problems that I see amongst founders is basically writer's block. It's a blank page syndrome. They have a blinking cursor and they go, "Oh, I guess I should post something on LinkedIn today, but I don't know what." Uh, if that's you, inevitably what you put out is going to be sort of weak. Instead, we want to create a system of putting information into your brain and in front of you so that when you go to write, there's no questions, no issues, no problems at all. You're ready to go. And in doing that, there's a couple of suggestions I have, which I'd like to jump into. So, number one, it's subscribing to your industry newsletters. And I wouldn't go out and try to subscribe to 10 or 12 or 20, but just choose one or two that you're comfortable with and make sure you actually read them. These days, most of us don't read newsletters anymore. I think the reason why is our inboxes are just totally full all the time. If you could just choose one or two that you actually like, and you can just sit down every week and make sure you read it, guarantee you that's a good place to get good information in your brain. One example of this is Matt McGarry's email newsletter about email newsletters. It's one that I read every week. It's one of the few I read anymore, but that one always has great ideas. It gets me thinking, and I always want to sort of sit down and write after reading his stuff. I'm sure you have something like that in your space. Just find it, read it, and then make sure that you're taking notes on it if something sparks something for you. The second little thing here is your social media feed. Most of us have feeds that are, let's say, a little bit out of control, where the AI algos have made things a little bit sketchy, maybe. People who instead curate their social feeds and make sure that they're really spending time on what they want to spend time on and not being sucked into distraction A or distraction B, you'll end up with a social feed that's much more powerful, much better, and much healthier, especially if it's around your business content. So if you do that right there and train your algo by actively spending a week not looking at the distractions and instead looking for the things that you know feed you good information, maybe commenting on people's posts that you like, searching for specific topics. In a week or two, you'll have a much healthier social feed. Twitter used to be able to build lists in Twitter. I'm sure there's some version of that that's still around, but as long as you engage with it the way that you want, you will eventually get a better social feed that's actually going to promote the content that you want in your brain when you go to then create stuff for your audience. Number three is a really old school tactic, and it is using Google Alerts. I know very few people who do this anymore. I mean, my dad does it, but I think Google Alerts is one of those things that will actually get you quite a bit back. All you have to do is go to Google, set up a couple of alerts for keywords in your space. That could be competitors you're following, that could be just industry news, and it will give you a report every day or every week, depending on how you want to do it, where you'll get a bunch of curated news right in your inbox, and it's a great way to stay on top of what's happening. And then connected to that, I'm not sure if this is a separate point or the same one, but Feedly is the company that I like using, where you can basically create an RSS feed where it gives you the ability to basically track the information in your space in the best way possible. RSS feeds go back to the early days of the internet. I think they've always been very useful, but again, nobody really uses these anymore, as far as I'm concerned. And whenever I bring them up, it's always been helpful. They essentially deliver you a curated set of news stories that you might have missed. And if you train it over time, Feedly especially is really good at giving you stuff that is, I think, almost always a hit, and the kind of things that you want to have in your brain when you turn around to them, share stuff or create content around. Then next is the AI deep research stuff. If you haven't used this for news specifically, you're kind of missing out. It's not perfect, and it'll often get very kind of biased with one source, and then it'll find like a listicle, and then it'll give you four things from that listicle. Um, but still, it's a good way to then create something that you can automate in ChatGPT. Make sure it happens once a week, and then get a report, in your inbox, so that you can actually have something to react to. And then lastly, here is the podcast in your space. I don't know about you, but I certainly walk around listening to too many podcasts, probably. The only trick here is that if you're putting good information in your brain, listening wise, audio wise, like with Audible or audiobooks, podcasts, it's sometimes a big jump to then go from having the stuff consumed to then produce something. So you have to do something like making notes, taking notes as soon as you're done listening. That's the only kind of gap in my mind. You can't just listen to something and then know that it's going to be available to you during your next content creation session. So those 6 things right there: the newsletter, or following a newsletter or two in your space, fixing your social feed, creating some Google alerts around keywords that you want to track, setting up Feedly or a similar RSS company, doing some AI deep research on a weekly basis, and then finally listening to podcasts in your space and taking notes. If you do those things, you will set yourself up well for a really strong way to track the news, and then to also stay on top of things in a kind of way that's healthy for you and easy to use moving forward. And on that note, I want to talk briefly about the 3-step process that you should be using for your writing. If you are like most people, again, writer's block is a major problem, and you're basically sitting on all these years of expertise, great experiences, great stories, and when you go to write, you just don't know what to say. The way to fix that is to sit down and to go through a 3-step process. Break down your writing instead of one session into 3 different steps. Number one, you want an ideation session where you can just sit down and brainstorm ideas. This is before you try to write anything. Just sit down and just kind of, you might want to say, what are a bunch of problems that I'm hearing from clients today? And you just create a big whiteboard of stuff. You can do this on a literal whiteboard, on a digital whiteboard, on a piece of paper, whatever it is. I like to use Notion for this kind of stuff, but you can use anything. Just create a big list of ideas. Don't write them out, just the ideas, bullet points, essentially. If you do that, and just save it in one place, you're going to have a documented place that you can come back to. It doesn't just have to be your own ideas. It could be screenshots. It could be other things that you grab from different places and then just stick in one swipe file in one place that you can come back to later. The point is to move quickly. Don't overthink it. If it's interesting, pop it in there. You can always just choose not to use it later, but just put everything in one clear spot. 99% of people don't do this, and that action by itself is a habit to build. But if you can do it, it's going to be great. Screenshots, again, are more valuable than you think, and I personally default to that. Screenshots, quick notes, whatever that is, just ideate. Okay, that's step one. Step two is create. So totally separate step, right? You don't want to do this in the same session. When it's time to sit down and create, like let's say that you want to write at 6 a.m. every morning, or once a week, whatever it is, make sure that you have a dedicated time to sit down and actually write stuff. For whatever your purposes are. And if you're sitting down to create, that's when you can avoid writer's block by looking at what you've already ideated. So if you take that big swipe file list, if you look at your screenshots, if you look at whatever you've put together before, the aim is to just quickly grab the idea or two that sticks out to you, pop it into your writing tool of choice, and then just write it whatever you want to write. Ideation, again, creation should not be a slow process. It doesn't have to be super well thought out. You saw something that caught your attention already, and then it caught your attention again in the list that you've looked at. That means there's probably something there. Get your ideas down. Again, don't overthink this. It's the next step that you can slow down on. So ideation is supposed to be very fast, collect stuff in one place. Creation is supposed to be kind of fast too. Just grab the things that you want to talk about, put down your flesh out your notes essentially. And then finally, when it comes to a session of actually sitting down and carefully putting things out in a healthy way that are final draft quality, that's the edit stage. So these 3 things should spell ICE. ICE, probably not the right acronym for these days, but ICE is what I use. The E stands for edits, and the edit session should be slow, methodical, careful. You want to basically work on your hooks. You want to work on the quality of the content. Is the argumentation strong? Am I making this the most powerful piece possible? Do I have some images maybe to back this up? Can I create, what are the trappings that I can create around this to make this a really awesome piece? Those are, really the quality of your writing is gonna pop in the edit phase if you actually do this. Now, again, most people will just sit down, open their app, and just write something that's, whatever they're thinking of at the time. For some people that works, but in my experience, if you want to do this properly, you need to be grabbing ideas from one place in one focused area that you can refer back to. Swipe file is a great way to do it. You then want to sit down for dedicated writing sessions, and then you also want to sit down for a dedicated, let's say, editing / posting session. So those 3 things are a great way to do it. If you start using that kind of process, I guarantee your writing's going to get better, and yourself will start getting a feel for writing hooks, for writing CTAs, for writing the type of posts that you like using. even coming back to certain visuals that you like. You'll start to see if you start to use screenshots that work. Maybe a certain type of screenshot works well for you. Maybe something on Canva that you create quickly lends itself to this kind of post. Whatever it is, this is where you can do some experimentation. And by adding this structure in the actual creation of the thing, you'll naturally have more structure around how you track stuff, how you look at your content, and how it becomes a little more than just I guess I got to get something posted, but because just because somebody told me to, and somebody told me that daily posting will somehow grow my account. So again, three-step process: ICE, ideation, creation, and edit. And then the 6 steps that I suggested earlier were a newsletter that you like, read that. Number 2 is a social feed. Clean up by just basically being a little more proactive on what you click and what you don't click on or watch. Number 3 was setting up Google keyword alerts. Number 4 was your Feedly account. I like Feedly a lot, but again, there's a lot of you don't have to choose that company. Do whatever you want. Some RSS feed. And number 5 is AI deep research on a weekly basis. I use ChatGPT, but you can use anything. Perplexity is great for this too, and I'm sure Gemini is pretty good now. And then finally, what's a podcast, and then how can you take notes on it quicker? So if you're walking around listening to a podcast, that's great. Maybe you can have Apple Notes open, and you can just kind of jot down an idea or two. All right. Well, with that said, next week we are going to have a couple of guests on. You'll see a couple folks that do AI automations. You'll see folks that are ad specialists. But moving forward, you'll find that the guests will bring on one specific tactic that will basically help a small team win in a crowded market. That's the gist of the show. And if you have any questions or suggestions for folks that want to be on, or specific ideas or questions that you've been struggling with, just let me know, and we will cover it in future episodes. All right, folks, take care. Speak soon.